Hey, what's up? This is Joshua, daily video blog. This is the third time I am doing this video because alerts keep interrupting it and phone calls and whatnot. And I should just hit, do not disturb, but whatever. Today's video is about momentum, building up momentum over time and beating that aspect of procrastination that is tied into needing enough time to do things. So, one of the biggest sources of procrastination when it comes to doing sort of creative work is thinking that you overestimate how much time you need to do something. So people will say like, oh, I'd love to paint again, but I don't have enough time. What they really mean by that is I don't have big uninterrupted blocks of time, which is of course totally true. Most people don't have big uninterrupted blocks of time. And in the rare instance that someone is like, okay, damn it, I need to paint again, and they carve out that big uninterrupted block, they cancel everything on a Saturday, it's really rare that Saturday is going to be super productive, because probably what's going to happen is one, they're going to be out of practice, so it's going to be hard to use that time productively, and there's going to be the realization like, oh man, I didn't really get anything done. Now you're gonna have to carve out another block of time, and there's this realization that you're gonna have to make this massive commitment to whatever art making. It's gonna be annoying, and it's gonna be a ton of work. And it's not to say it's not gonna be worth it, but it's gonna be like you're entering into like a serious relationship with another person or something like that. It's gonna be very demanding. On the other hand, maybe you know what you're doing, but you sit down and that 4 hours you carved out or 6 hours you carved out just wasn't productive. And it kind of sucks that it wasn't productive, and you're kind of bummed out because you spent all this time and maybe you actually feel like you suck as a result of it. I think it's super typical. It certainly happened to me. I imagine it happens to lots of people. Now, so let's say you took you 4 hours to do whatever. Let's say make music, and it wasn't really productive. What if you had spent that same 4 hours over the course of a month in 10 to 15 minute increments? So every couple days or something like that, you spent 10 or 15 minutes working on music. The first day would not be super productive, but it would probably be fun. And the reason it would be fun is because you wouldn't expect to get anything done in 15 minutes. You'd pick up your guitar or whatever, and you'd strum and you'd kind of play along a little bit. And then you'd move on with your day. Like, let's say you make it reward based, that if you spend the 15 minutes working on your music, then you get to have dinner. So first day, not super productive. Second day, still probably not super productive, but I bet you looked forward to it. Third day, probably still not productive, but you definitely looked forward to it. It feels good to hold the instrument again. It feels good to play. It feels good that no matter what happened that day, you got to play guitar. Now, it's not going to be productive for a little bit unless you're insanely lucky. But what is going to happen is that those 10-minute increments are going to build up. And after the 7th one, I guarantee you it's productive, and that you're learning things, and that one of the things that's going to happen is the way that you work, your creative process is going to adapt to 10-minute increments. So most of us need big stretches of time because we were taught that to make work requires big stretches of time. So as such, we adapt to it. But if you try to turn that around and you start working in 10-minute increments, you're going to find that your creative process bends and molds itself to the 10-minute increment. That the way that your brain switches on is going to be pretty much the minute that 10-minute increment starts, and then you're going to play, and then it's going to hold on to that information, and it's going to start to build on it in the days that follow, and soon it's going to become a thread through time of an uninterrupted activity, and you can have spent 4 hours over the course of a month that are probably more productive than anything you had done in the previous 4 months. Speaking for myself, this is 100% true. Now, there's gonna be a couple of cool things that happen. One, you build momentum. Momentum, I look at it as is just energy and flexibility. You're not stiff when you have momentum because you've been doing the thing. The other thing is you're going to build up an addiction. Building up an addiction, as far as creative work is concerned, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. A project is a big headache that you have to think about and plan for. An addiction just takes over your free time and it takes over your mental capacities. So you spend your 10 minutes here and there playing guitar, and then you're going to become addicted to it again in the same way that a kid is, except that you're not going to have the time that a kid has. That is going to start to really eat away. You're going to run into that 10-minute increment that you gave yourself, and you're going to start being 5 minutes early, and then you start hanging out 5 minutes later. It's going to, whereas before you may be able to motivate yourself to do this thing that felt like work, here you're going to have to actually try to stop yourself from spending too much time on it, running into other parts of your life, and you will start to rearrange your life to deal with your addiction in the same way the cigarette smokers rearrange their lives to maintain their addictions. You're going to do the same thing. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to build momentum, and soon it's going to turn out that you are doing things like writing whole songs in the time that it used to take you to turn on an amp. You're going to find yourself making paintings at a speed that is massively different than what you're used to. And now we could argue that it's great to have time to do something and to let something stretch out, but the value in this is that you have a life already and you only have so much time. You develop an addiction that becomes productive. It's working with your actual life, and it will gradually change it to where it's unrecognizable a year later, to where your productivity is at a massively different level than it's ever been. Again, I'm speaking for myself, but whatever, it works. So, if time is an issue, if you think that you need a lot of time, get away from the notion that you have to make these big giant commitments to work. Instead, make a stupid little commitment. I'm on my way to get my coffee. To get my coffee, I have to spend the time to make a video. That's it. Very simple. The reward for making the video is coffee. Sometimes the reward for shooting a bunch of abstractions is dinner. The reward for going to the bathroom the reward for doing push-ups for me is that I get to go to the bathroom. You build up an addiction and you're going to be way more productive, and the momentum is going to be effortless and easy because it will just take over. All right. Thanks for watching. Peep those beautiful clouds.